everyone. We're making a video just especially for you and for your Easter. So we're going to make this French apple tart. It's a little bit different than the recipe I sent you, which I kidded that one down a little bit, but this one is basically the same one. So in the Cuisinart, I have 2 cups of flour, which the recipe says. I have a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and actually I have 1 tablespoon of sugar. It doesn't say that on the recipe, so make that change. 1 tablespoon of sugar. We put the top on the Cuisinart. We just pulse it 1 time. That's just to incorporate the flour, the salt, and the sugar. Now we're going to put 3/4 of a cup of butter, cold butter. This is from the refrigerator. Sometimes I put it in the freezer too because I want it to be really cold. That's important. So a 1/2 cup is a 1 cube. So we have 3/4 of a cup, so it's 1 cube and a 1/2. So we're going to cut this up, and when you, it's good to use a sharp knife when it's cold, especially if it's frozen. Keep your fingers well away from it because it's oily and you don't want them to slide and get your fingers cut. So we're just going to cut this up in little pieces to go inside the Cuisinart. We're moving pretty fast on this video just because I just want to get it done. You can always ask me questions. Well, not right now, but you can ask me later. So we're going to put these in the Cuisinart. 3/4 of a cup of butter, and it's unsalted butter. That makes for a little bit sweeter of a crust. So we're going to pulse now. So I pulsed that about 25 times. I'm going to open it up and see if it looks like the butter is in little chunks. So can you see that? Can you see the little chunks of butter in there? They're about the size of a pea. That's actually just what you want. Next, I'm going to put the cold water in. So it says 1/3 cup cold water. I have ice cubes in this to make it cold, and I'm going to put 1/3 cup cold water. I don't want the ice cubes actually in the Cuisinart. I just want the cold water. And I'm wondering if you know why you want everything to be cold. Maybe I'll explain that when we're rolling out the dough. Okay, so 1/3 cup cold water. Pulse again. Okay, so I just pulsed it about 10 times that time, and now let's look at it again. It looks very dry, right? Mm-hmm. But there's water in there, and there's butter, and it's going to all hold together. We're going to take this now and put it on a piece of saran wrap. Now we're going to use the sides of the saran wrap, pull this all up together. And this is going to be a French apple tart, so it's not going to be a round pie crust. It's going to be an oblong tart. So I want to kind of keep this shape in mind as I pull this together. So I'm going to pull up the sides and then pull up the corners so I have like that shape. Then I'm just going to press it down. So just like that, that's all you have to do. And you can see now that it's staying together. It's a dough. It still looks dry, but it's still holding together. At this point, it goes in the refrigerator for at least 30 minutes. So that's what I'm going to do. We'll come back. Right. Okay. We're going to use Granny Smith or Pippin apples. They're basically the same thing. The green skins, we've already skinned them. And then I'm going to use the mandolin on the thickest slicing blade it has, which is still very thin. We want the apples to be very thin. It's probably a 1/16 of an inch, 1/2 of a 1/4 of an inch. We want them really thin for this recipe. So I've already sliced the apples. So now we're going to roll out the crust. Flour all over my pastry cloth. This is just an old tablecloth. You can use any 100% cotton piece of fabric. Sometimes I use old aprons like this. You just want it to be substantial. You don't want to use a little flimsy little tea tea towel. You want, this is a kind of a thick, old cotton tablecloth. So now we're going to roll this out. This is also a pastry, what do you call these? A pastry sock, or sock, yeah. I'm gonna put some flour on this because I don't want it to stick. Okay, so now we're just gonna roll this crust out. And this is not gonna be a round pie crust. This is gonna be a rectangle. So I'm gonna roll it out this way and move it around the cloth. Move over, little chicken. Okay. So I keep moving it around the cloth just to make sure that it's not sticking. And I want to be going out in this direction, towards me, then out. Move it around just to make sure that it's not sticking anywhere. And remember, this is a rustic French apple tart. So it's not going to look perfect in any way, which is my favorite thing. So now this is about what we want. This crust, Maylin, can you show her that this is about a 1/4 inch, I would say. That's about the thickness that you want the crust. That's perfect. And see how it's free form? That's good. Then I have my pastry, my cookie sheet close by. And I made one of these at a friend's house the other day, and she didn't have lips on her cookie sheet. They're flat. And this is gonna not bleed. It's going to ooze out juice, and so you want to have a little lip on your cookie sheet like this, because otherwise it makes a big messy mess on the bottom of your oven. Okay, so now we're just going to put this on top of the cookie sheet, and you can butter it. I always use parchment paper. Okay, so let's take this over by the apples. Now we're just going to put apples down in a row, and see, you can see how there's a little bit of skin on that. That's all right. Just a few little brown spots. I'm not liking that too much. I'm going to just take those off. Remember, this is a free-form apple tart, so we're not trying to do anything super fancy. We're just going to put the apples in there. This one.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're back. So we've laid the crust out, and now I've just in rows put the apples in here, kind of free form, just 3 or so layers, really thin apples. Now we're going to put dab it with butter. Just stick butter around it because butter is so delicious. Just gonna stick a generous amount, maybe 3 tablespoons in all. Gosh, Leanne, I wish you could taste this. Oh well, you'll have to make it. Okay, now we're going to put, here, this is 1/3 of sugar, because remember I talked about how these apples are very tart, and this is a dessert, remember, it's not health food, so we want this to be sweet. So I'm going to put 1/3, and this is another 1/3. I'm not going to put 2/3 cup, but maybe half of this. I know I'm doing this very fast and very free form, but actually I'm going to put 2. So now we have the apples and the butter. Mm-hmm. Now we're just going to roll this crust over to make a very free form tart. And I have the oven preheated to 400. And we're just going to fold that over. Now, I know I keep calling this a free-form tart. It's nothing beautiful to look at right now. When it comes out of the oven, it's beautiful. So that's it. Voila. So there, I saw it tore a little bit there. That's okay. If your pie crust tears a little bit, just pinch it together. It's very soft dough, like you can see. very, very soft, so just pinch it together. All right?
Mm-hmm.
So into the oven at 400 degrees.
That's it, right?